Good morning. Let's see, make sure that I have all of my sound and everything all together. Welcome, welcome. Today we are talking about healthy baking substitutes, and we've actually been doing this live as a series inside of the Wellness Circle, and I'll put that link over here for you. If you're not already a member of the Wellness Circle, each week we have inspiration and a challenge. On Wednesdays, we do a lunchtime Wellness Wednesday class. On Thursdays, they get early access to the new blog info. Fridays, I do free office hours. And on Saturdays, I do a recipe pod. And in October, it looks like we will do our October Crocktober, so healthy crock pot recipes all month long. So I'm going to put this in the comments over here so that you can access that group. It's actually a group based on taking actionable steps for the stuff we talk about on the podcast. So welcome, welcome. Fall and winter, right? Today it was 49 degrees when I got up here in North Texas. Makes me so happy. I've got my sweater on. But fall and winter really make me want to start baking, or at least want to eat baked goods. I'm not really great at baking. Luckily, my mom and my oldest daughter are super good at baking, so we're never short on baked goods. But for a lot of people, and I can't tell you, starting about now all the way through December, I'll have the same conversation with almost every one of my one-on-one clients about how the holidays and all the things that come up in fall and winter don't have to set off flares and troubles and trigger all the things, right? Because there are super, super healthy baking substitutes that will revolutionize your favorite baked goods. They'll keep them relatively anti-inflammatory still, and they taste freaking amazing, right? So we're going to talk about some of them today. Really encourage that you join the Wellness Circle so that you can get all of the information there. And if you hang out with me on Instagram, you'll find me sharing my favorite recipe swaps all the time. But we're going to talk specifically today about flour and sugar swaps, dairy alternatives, and egg alternatives. And those are kind of the big triggers for people. And we'll even touch on how to sneak some veggies into your baked goods, or we did in the group. And believe me, it works, right? So if I'm just popping into your newsfeed and you don't know who the heck I am, I'm Audrey Christie. I'm a functional and integrative nurse nutritionist and energy medicine practitioner, and I help women start their very own autoimmune revolution, whether you are officially diagnosed or you just have a collection of symptoms or syndromes. So, like I said, you don't have to miss out on treats, right? Sugary, floury, dairy, egg, fluffy, rich treats can wreak havoc on your health, especially if they are triggers for you. If you don't know if they're triggers for you, then let me know and I'll give you a link to the article to find out if you know what those triggers are. But healthy substitutes can transform a dish into something healthy, or at least healthy-ish, without all of that inflammation. And so it's kind of funny. Often people listen to the podcast or check out Instagram or here on Facebook, and they think, well, gosh, like, I feel sorry for your kids, man. They must be missing out. My poor kids and poor me and poor family for choosing to eliminate those triggers that trigger massive inflammation and illness for us. Again, they're different for every person. And so I get a lot of that, oh, your poor kids. I'm like, here's the thing, guys. We still have ice cream. We still have cookies. I like to say I still make cookies, but really my mom makes cookies. We still have cake on birthdays. We have pies and stuffings on holidays, but we do it without gluten, dairy, white sugar, and eggs, and it still tastes amazing. We even make the occasional Starbucks run, and if you're interested in my Starbucks tips, I'll share that with you soon. I can take any Starbucks recipe with that handy little Starbucks app and make it as anti-inflammatory as possible with non-organic coffee, right? So some of my favorite swaps. Let's talk flour and sugar. So being gluten-free and avoiding sugar doesn't mean you have to forfeit baking altogether. I do recommend that being gluten-free, that you don't replace everything with a gluten-free alternative, right? Whether you're gluten-free or not, flour-based products should still only be in that 15% of your diet, right? It shouldn't be the bulk. But you can revolutionize your baking by switching out white flour that has gluten in it or wheat flour that has gluten in it, and even sugar with some different alternatives. So for flour, try quinoa flour, coconut flour. Coconut flour, you have to adjust your liquid in your recipe a little bit more. Almond flour or oat flour. Oat flour is a really good one. It's probably the most white flour-like that you will find. You can even find some combination flours. They're a little bit difficult to find sometimes, but you can find some combination flours that are really like a good baking mix. And then for sugars, you can really, most recipes, you'd be doing yourself a favor to cut down the suggested sugar measurement. It often doesn't affect the taste. That can be really easy to do in the fall and winter because we're using things like cinnamon and ginger and all of those really earthy, spicy spices. And so by removing them, by reducing the sugar and adding a little bit more of those, you can balance that out. If you want to go full force into, not having the white processed sugar in there, try raw or unfiltered honey. That does affect the flavor a little bit. Unsweetened applesauce can be a good replacement for sugar. Coconut sugar, it's kind of like the oat flour, right? Coconut sugar is the best, like cup for cup replacement. Grade A organic maple syrup, date paste, which you can make yourself if you have a blender, and some pitted dates. Make sure you have pitted dates because it'll sound like a ping pong ball in your, it'll sound like what's a pinball? That's what I was trying to think of, a pinball machine in your blender if not. And you can also use figs pureed in water, so you can make a fig paste. So the only thing you want to consider when you're leaving out sugar is that you're not swapping it for artificial sugars, because that's just trading one set of problems for another. For dairy and eggs, it can be a little bit trickier, right? Like you can get on Pinterest and you can find a whole lot of gluten-free recipes that are really, really good. When you start pulling out those extra things, that's when it gets a little dicey. You might be hard-pressed to find a recipe for baked goods that don't call for milk and eggs. As you guys know, gluten and dairy are two hard, I feel like nobody should be on them. In fact, I can think back to the last 10 years, and I think I've told 2 people that they could continue eating really high quality bread with gluten. But most people are sensitive to dairy and don't even realize it. It causes digestive upset, bloating, headaches, skin rashes. It can be a root cause for autoimmune disorders because it really causes hormone dysregulation. And if you have something like seasonal allergies, you have a dairy intolerance. So if you are on the fall or spring allergy train where you're taking a daily Zyrtec, you are taking a daily Allegra or whatever it may be, you just have runny nose and snotty eyes, then dairy is a problem for you. And guess what? It doesn't have to be hard. There's so many good dairy alternatives these days. But whether you think you're sensitive or not to dairy, there are some simple alternatives that can make your baking much, much less inflammatory and even more delicious, in my opinion. So you can replace anything that calls for plain old milk with any kind of plant milk. So you can use almond milk. You can use coconut milk, although that changes the flavor a little bit. You can use oat milk. Those oats, man, oat milk is great. Instead of butter, you can use coconut oil or a creamy avocado puree if color doesn't matter. You can also use ghee because ghee has really, really low casein in it. Getting rid of traditional ice cream is easy peasy. You can either do sherbet or So Delicious has an amazing, amazing dairy-free ice cream. It's really expensive for the little jar of it. You can even make nice cream at home. We frequently make our own ice cream with a little countertop ice cream maker without any dairy inside. If your recipe calls for cheese, which I know we're kind of talking about sweet baked goods, but if you're on the savory side and your recipe calls for cheese, you can use a nut-based cheese if you don't have any nut allergies. You can also use Daiya makes a really good no soy, no carrageenan brand of vegan cheese. It's certainly not a health food, but if dairy is a problem for you and you really want to have those sausage balls at Christmas, or what are they, did y'all ever make those, the Bisquick balls? They were like sausage and Bisquick and a whole lot of cheddar cheese. So you can make those and they taste a whole lot better with the sausage, the almond flour, and the vegan cheese, okay? Now, like I said, we're super lucky to have a ton of dairy alternatives. They're really easy to find. I've even seen a few at Walmart if you're doing your grocery shopping there, although I don't recommend it, but that's a conversation for another day. But choosing a dairy alternative means you avoid the lactose and you avoid the casein. And that's a really, really big improvement, especially if you are somebody that's having digestive issues, or like I said, seasonal allergies, that is like an unrelated weird sign that dairy is not for you. Last one is eggs. And a lot of people don't think about eggs, but they are one of the top 3 allergens, right? And I always hear like, well, how the heck can you bake without eggs? And I totally get it. You're getting in your chemistry mind. It's so stinking simple though. You can either use flaxseed or chia seed alternatives. They don't provide the volume or the like that puffy look of eggs, but you can add some of that puff by adding some baking powder or baking soda to kind of fix that issue. So for reference, 1 egg equals about 2 teaspoons of chia seeds, and you mix them in a 1/4 cup of water. You have to let them sit for about 5 minutes, so you need to like prep in advance. Also, 1 egg equals about 1 tablespoon of golden flaxseed. Again, mixed with 3 tablespoons of water. Let it sit before you use it. You can also substitute eggs with applesauce, right? So it sounds crazy, but it works. Now, you've heard me say applesauce twice, like once as a sugar substitute and once as an egg substitute. So when you're taking your favorite recipe and you're changing it over to something healthier, to something less inflammatory, to something that won't trigger you, to something you don't have to feel guilty about, which you shouldn't feel guilty about anyways, but that's, again, a conversation for another day. Then if you're swapping your sugar for applesauce, then you're not gonna wanna swap your egg for applesauce. You can do one or the other. So if you are gonna use applesauce for either an egg or the sugar substitute, then you're gonna wanna choose something else for the other one, okay? So yeah, so if you want to join the Wellness Circle, the link is in the comments, and you will have information there on swapping, adding some vegetables into the mix. You'll have more in-depth information on the flour, sugar, egg, and dairy substitutes. And that's all I really have for you today. It's very, very short today, but I'd love to have you come join us in the Wellness Circle, totally free. And if you have your health, I want you to remember this. When you're thinking of moving into the fall and winter baking season, if you have your health, you have everything, right? So taking care of your body, mind, spirit should be a priority no matter what season of the year it is. But that also doesn't mean that you should have to avoid all of these fall treats. It took us a few Thanksgivings to figure out how to do this without how to make stuffing without gluten and eggs. But it can be done, and it's done well and easy. And I would pass the taste test, left to right for like the old school recipe that used to just be full of eggs and full of white bread and all of those things. So I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And again, join us in the Wellness Circle. Make sure that you leave your world however you found it just a little bit better than when you got up this morning. Be well.